Hi Aquarius, and welcome to your horoscope for 2025. Thanks for joining me. Please watch my horoscopes in this order: rising sign first, then sun sign, and finally for your moon sign. In this horoscope, I'm going to look at the retrogrades of the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, which one of your houses they retrograde in and how that will influence you. Then I'll look at the 4 eclipses that are coming up in 2025. And then I also want to look at the 4 outer planets that are changing signs, which to me is a huge deal because the outer planets, they represent society and humanity as a whole, and they move very, very slowly. So if we have one outer planet in a year changing sign, that's already very significant because they do move so slowly. But the fact that we have 4 of them changing sign here this year, Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, and to a lesser degree Jupiter, it means that 2025 is going to feel and look very different to the past few years that we've just come through. And also they're going to give an insight and a glimpse into the future, not just in 2025, but beyond into 2026 and 27. They're going to do exactly what Pluto did in January 2024. So Pluto is the planet of transformation and change. It's been in Capricorn since 2008, and it moved into Aquarius in January. Then it retrograded one more and final time into Capricorn in September, October, November, moved forward into Aquarius again, and now it's going to stay there until 2043. These planets, Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus, are going to do exactly the same thing. They're going to test the waters in their new sign in 2025. Then they'll retrograde, and then they're going to settle in those signs for a longer period in 2026. So I'm going to have a look at what's happening, which one of your houses this touches, and what you can expect. Let's start with the personal planet. So we've got Mercury retrograde. That happens 3 times in 2025. That's a good sign in itself because it can happen 4 times in a year. And when Mercury retrogrades, it can cause issues with communication and transportation. The plus side of Mercury retrograde is that it gives us the ability to see things very differently and to kind of take the blinkers off and to gain insights that we hadn't had before. So the first time it retrogrades is on the 14th of March until the 7th of April, and it retrogrades in Aries in your 3rd house of communication, and it moves back into Pisces in your 2nd house of money. And that's kind of interesting because the 3rd house is communication. It's your existing life as it is and minor changes that you want to make. It's also about the way you communicate. So if there's anything where you've been very strident and confident, you'll be able to tweak that to make it more accessible to everyone else. But when it goes into Pisces in your 2nd house, it's going to make you overly forgiving when it comes to your finances and how you create an income. So let's say that you're working in a job and you're working very hard, but you're not being paid enough. That Mercury in retrograde in Pisces may make you dismiss that and say, oh, well, that's the way it is. I don't really want to make any waves or confront this situation. So with this first retrograde, I would really encourage you to look at those things objectively and on their merit. And regardless of your feelings, if there is something that is unbalanced, to try and address that. But if it's easier, make note of what you feel during the retrograde. And once the planet goes direct again on the 8th of April, then maybe confront those situations. The second retrograde is on the 17th of July, and it stays in retrograde until the 11th of August. And this time Mercury is in Leo in your 7th house of relationships. So again, it's interesting because Mercury in Leo is not shy. It's very confident. It likes to lead. It likes to be in the spotlight. And it likes to say things loudly and reach a great number of audience and to get its point across. And in retrograde, in the 7th house of relationships, and those are relationships with colleagues, friends, family members, anybody really, formal and informal relationships, the altered perspective may be, this is the way I'm showing up. How can I tweak that to make it more palatable to the people I'm speaking to? But also what I'm getting with that is if you're in a situation, let's say you're in a group of people, right? And if something happens, they kind of always push you to the front and get you to sort things out for everybody else. have a look at that. And I'm not saying that every relationship is transactional, as in you give me something, I get something, right? But if you haven't noticed that there's certain friends or colleagues who constantly put more responsibility on you and expect you to do more than anyone else, that you may start to notice that, and again, confront it to try and get a sense of balance in your life so that you're not doing all the work and other people are just coasting, especially if you don't benefit from that anymore. The final retrograde is from the 9th of November until the 29th of November, and that happens on the other side of your chart. Let's see. It happens, first of all, in Sagittarius, in your 11th house of hopes and dreams, and then it retrogrades back into Scorpio in your 10th house of career. So that's actually a very good retrograde in the sense that if you have been not giving yourself enough credit, or if you have made plans that are very small for the future, or if you set certain goals years ago and you've accomplished those, but you haven't updated your list of what you'd like to do next, that's a great time to see that you're, at this point in your life, with your experience and your knowledge, you're more equipped to accomplish things which may not be or may not have been in the past in the realms of reality, that you can dream bigger and you can set bigger goals for yourself. And then when it goes into Scorpio in your 10th house, you'll get a really clear sense of how you feel around your current work. So this last retrograde is kind of like an update retrograde where you can look at the plans for the future and your existing circumstances, especially in career, or if you're a student or retired, what you're working towards. Is that still appropriate? Is it still meaningful to you? And if not, you can make changes there. Venus is the planet of love and beauty and creativity. And whenever that retrogrades, I always mention that it's not such a good time to start a new business or a new relationship, because your feelings or your perspective around love are often very altered. And during that time, something that you're absolutely fascinated by, when the planet goes direct again, you could go, what was I thinking in that case? So this one goes retrograde on the 1st of March until the 12th of April, and it happens in your 2nd house of money as well. So Venus in Pisces is very loving, it's very nurturing, it's very forgiving. It sits next to Saturn in Pisces, the North Node in Pisces, and Mercury in Pisces. So similarly to what I said about Mercury when it was in retrograde in that area, it's this notion that, oh, money doesn't really matter. And as long as I'm connected to the higher realms, everything's wonderful. That is not a good business strategy. So I would really say with this Venus retrograde, don't start a new business this time around, Aquarius. And also, if there are any negotiations or discussions around your contract, look at it objectively, or maybe even get someone to go in with you to kind of represent your best interest, because you're going to be very willing to comply in order not to rock the boat. Then we also have Mars going retrograde once in 2025. And it's already in retrograde from the 6th of December 2024 until the 23rd of February 2025. And that is in your 6th house of daily routine and structure in Cancer. And it's a very similar thing to what I just said about Venus, because Mars is ambition. It's what I don't want to compromise on. It's what I'm going to fight for. But in Cancer, I always feel that's not the ideal placement for Mars, because Mars then is so focused on the well-being of other people and taking care of everybody and being very nurturing. But being in your 6th house of daily routine and work and structure, on the plus side, you're able to tweak or see what in your daily routine doesn't work and causes you more harm than good. But again, when it comes to your working life, there any kind of career discussions or even discussions for promotion or anything that would see you kind of go up the ladder, you're not going to be so invested in that. I think the opposite. I think you'd rather keep to yourself and be much more interested in other people succeeding, which is good and fine. But let's say you work in a company and you stay there 80 hours a week and other people only do 60, then why should they get more responsibility and more pay when you're making the biggest contribution. So with all the retrogrades for you, Aquarius, I think out of all of the signs, it's very important for you to look things in as objective a way as possible and not just to jump to conclusions based on your feelings. Okay, so let's look at the eclipses then. Eclipses always come in twos, and the first one is on the 13th or 14th of March, depending on your time zone. This one is a full moon in Virgo, and it's a lunar eclipse. So the great thing about eclipses is they're either new moons or full moons, but because of this eclipse process, it's interrupted and the energy lingers for about 6 months. So you're able to tap into it for that period. So here from the 13th of March until around August, September, the full moon in Virgo happens in your 8th house of institutions and authorities, corporations, big groups of people, right? Employers. So Virgo is the researcher, it's the analyst, it's ruled by Mercury, the communication planet, and it's very good at taking information and coming up with accurate and good meaning. So this really mitigates the retrogrades that we've got happening in 2025 that I just mentioned, because if you are employed, or if you've got any legal kind of things going on, or if you're in mediation or there's a divorce and you're looking for the settlement, this says that you're not going to be willing to say, oh, well, just take whatever you want. I just want peace and quiet. This is very good and says if I'm in the right and if that's factually on paper and provable, then I'm not going to back down. So that's really great because for the next 6 months from that, you can really stand your ground and stand up for what's yours. But also if you want to get into any new organizations or institutions, so if you're submitting a manuscript to a publisher, or you're going for job interviews, or if you're writing for the academic journal, anything like that, you'll be able to get those doors to open. The next eclipse is on the 29th of March, and that's a new moon in Aries, and that's a solar eclipse. So lunar eclipse, the moon, your heart; solar, the sun, your head. This one happens in your 3rd house of communication in Aries, and next to this new moon eclipse is Chiron, the wounded healer, also in Aries, the transiting midheaven, and Mercury in Aries. So really for you, 2025 is a year of 2 halves where you have to look out for the retrogrades. But as far as these first 2 eclipses are concerned, this is fabulous for getting clear on what you want to do next in terms of your career. It's also great for making changes to your existing circumstances and changing them so you feel more empowered and you feel like you have more freedom. Also, if you're a writer or a public speaker or someone who wants to get their point across, there's lots of confidence. There's the ability to produce content which is going to be helpful to your work, and even there's a potential for a comeback, so that if your career has suffered, you're able to produce something creative and wonderful and powerful that will put you back on top. So they do always come in twos. So these first 2, their energies will support you until August, September. But then in September, we've got 2 more eclipses. The first one is on the 7th of September, and that's a full moon in Pisces. It's a lunar eclipse. And this happens in your 2nd house of money. We've also got the North Node in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces in there at the time. So your assessment of your role in a big organization is pretty clear. But when it comes to money, again, I think you're going to be a little lackadaisical. This is the year for you, Aquarius, where you're not counting every penny. And I think it's to the extent where you could even be a little lavish or uninterested in money, and you could use it as a way to change the way you feel. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I've come across that in my own life, or have noticed people who do that, it usually ends with spending more than you're getting in. So keeping an eye on the finances is a good idea. The great thing is, again, that if you, even though you're not so interested in money, as a matter of principle, you're not going to compromise on your role or what other people say about you in terms of your contribution. That's an area where you really will stand up for yourself. So this will influence you until March, April of 26. Then on the 21st of September, we've got the last eclipse of the year. And this is a new moon in Virgo, and it's a solar eclipse. And again, it's in your 8th house. We've got Venus, the South Node, and the transiting midheaven also in Virgo. So it's weird. It's a weird combination that Virgo is really the analyst and is able to create super, super meaningful insights when studying something. And if you're trying to plan your career for the future, especially if you're employed, you'll be able to gain great insights that will allow you to come up with a really good action plan. Also, if you want to start your own charity, your own institution, your own foundation, your own corporation, all of that is going to be very, very easy. Oh, so that's actually wonderful, because a lot of the people I read books about or watch interviews with, a lot of their interest isn't exactly money and what the paycheck is and what they get out of it. A lot of successful people do really well, and money is a nice side effect because they really care about the content of their work and they want to do the best thing possible. So Aquarius, if you're someone who's always watched the bottom line in terms of how much money are being paid every month, this year may be a time where that really alters and you find your life purpose as it relates to career. You truly devote yourself to that and you can make huge inroads into that. And then ironically, the result of that is that you get a bigger paycheck. So maybe your lack of interest in finances is actually a good thing because it allows you to focus on your real passions. Okay, so let's look at the outer planets then. On the 30th of March until the 22nd of October, we have Neptune, the water planet of dreams and intuition, and the planet that's the higher octave of Venus, that kind of connects us all as human beings. That goes into Aries, and it's been in Pisces in your 2nd house of money. So when it now goes into Aries in your 3rd house of communication, that lack of interest or that sense of the financial details kind of bore me, that disappears. And Neptune being the creative dream planet, it becomes much more focused. And if you're someone who's an artist or a writer or a performer, or if you work as a psychic or as a channel, as a medium, you'll find that you'll be able to tap into those intuitive gifts much more, and you'll be able to produce a lot more content as a result of your discoveries. So again, it's saying the same thing, is that you're on top of your game as far as your work is concerned. But now with Neptune making that shift in March, you're also able to watch the checkbook and make sure that's in order as well. So what's also interesting about this is Neptune is an outer planet that moves very, very slowly, right? It takes 165 years to go around the entire zodiac. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Aries is the first. So Neptune is starting a whole new 165-year journey, and it spends about 13 to 14 years in each sign. So Neptune's going to be in Aries now for a long time in your 3rd house, and it means that you're looking at not just 25 being a year where you're very prolific, especially if you work as an intuitive, as a healer, or as a creative, and that isn't going anywhere. So that really signals a new era as far as your work in those areas are concerned. And what I would also say is Neptune being the imagination, if you've struggled to find a different way of living, if you wanted to change your life in quite a drastic way, you'll start to get real ideas that you can implement on your own to create more freedom and independence for yourself. If we're looking at Neptune as something that represents society as a whole, what we'll notice is there is going to be a lot more momentum as far as creativity and innovation in the arts and healing and intuitive abilities concerned. Things like, I don't know, but if I remember correctly, like in the 70s and 80s, things like remote viewing and telekinesis and all of those were very trendy and in. People had never heard of those before. Whereas these days, I don't hear a lot about that kind of stuff. So we may start to notice new types of spiritual modalities and practices that could resonate with people who currently don't resonate with them, and that could really improve the quality of their lives. And maybe you're one of the Aquarius people who actually presents that kind of content. On the 24th of May until the 1st of September, we've got Saturn going into Aries, and Saturn has also been in Pisces in your 2nd house of money. Saturn is structure and security. It rules Capricorn, and it's about working and being productive and getting things done in order to create security in life, right? But in Pisces, it's been the real security and structure in my life is my sense of spiritual connection and connecting to my higher self. It hops over into your third house of communication, and it joins Neptune also now in Aries. So it's so interesting that they're both doing this at the same time. And with Saturn in Aries, the real security in your life isn't now so much your connection to the higher realms. It's your inner self, what motivates you, what fires you up in life, and what represents a challenge. And in the third house of communication, you'll become a lot braver in terms of figuring things out on your own, but you're also going to be less reluctant to share your own ideas and to present them publicly. So, if you Google people's worst fear, the number one thing is public speaking and public presentation. So if that's something that you've struggled with, you'll find that that becomes less of an issue via the astrology. In terms of practical things, an organization I've heard of is Toastmasters. It's a group of people who actually practice that kind of thing. So whichever way you look at this, I think it's going to be much easier to get your point across, and that's going to feel very liberating. Now, Saturn also moves slowly. It takes 29 years to go around the chart. So between 28 and 29 and a half years to go around the entire 12 signs. And that's what's called a Saturn return. As far as I'm concerned, Saturn return is the most important thing that can happen in the astrology. And it stays in each sign for about 2.5 to 3 years. Oh, and just going back, your Saturn return is going to happen around the age of 28 to 29 and a half, 56 to 58, and 84 to 86. And that's when Saturn comes along and it says, hey, listen, this is what you're supposed to do with your life. Let's have a look at what you're actually doing. And it can force you to get back on track and to do what you're kind of designed to do, or to operate in a way that really uses all your skills and talents. So with you, Aquarius, being an air sign anyway, that in your third house of communication, if you've galloped off in the wrong direction in the last few months or years, this is now an opportunity to get back on track and to say, do you know what, that's the past. I really want to do something that I care about and that presents itself as the completion of my life purpose. If we're looking at this in a societal way, in a bigger way, Saturn was in Aries in 1967 and to 1969, and that was a time of major social upheaval where people had a lot more freedom, and they wouldn't tolerate being just put down all the time anymore and being repressed by all these rules. So I expect something similar to that, but also Aries is ruled by Mars, which is the planet of war and conflict. So there may also be more conflict in our world. On the 9th of June 2025 to the 29th of June 2026, we've got Jupiter, the lucky planet, exiting Gemini. And in your case, it's been in Gemini in your fifth house of romantic relationships and what you love to do. So it would have supported you in really nailing it and finding what your purpose is. Now with it going in your sixth house, it's really good because it encourages you to take care of yourself via your own physical body, good self-care, to make sure your daily routine is one that's helpful and healing and positive, that you can sustain. But it also means that when it comes to the daily routines of your work, that unlike by the retrograde, you're no longer willing to tolerate a situation which actively harms you and exploits you. So you really have this microscope killer lens when it comes to your career and what you're doing and what you get out of it. And any imbalance, again, you're going to find you can change that very easily. And then finally, from the 7th of July till the 7th of November, Uranus, the planet of the miraculous and the unexpected, that moves out of Taurus and into Gemini, and it moves very slowly as well. It takes it 84 years to go around the zodiac. So it stays in each sign for about 7 years, right? And when it was in Taurus, it could have caused some upheaval or lack of certainty when it came to your roots, the things that make you feel safe in life, family members, where you live, where you belong. And it's really good news in your case because it moves into Gemini in your fifth house of what you love. and Gemini is problem solving. So if you're an Aquarius who hasn't figured out the ideal job or your life purpose as it relates to career, Uranus is really going to help you with that, and it stays there for 7 years. And it allows you to make a lot of progress. It's also really good for romantic relationships and finding new doors to walk through. And if you're single and you want to connect with someone, to actually make that happen. Again, in terms of the bigger picture, Uranus in Gemini is all about technological advances, inventions, major progress in AI, social media, technology, and the role that technology plays in people's lives. So I expect things to really speed up there. I mentioned this in one of the other videos, but when Pluto went into Aquarius, immediately I saw in the news that the first flying car was there, which probably is still in its infancy stages. But that Uranus in Gemini is that kind of thing, you know, like things that don't exist now technologically, things that enable us to do the unthinkable right now, those are going to come in the next 7 years. But for you personally, it really supports you in finding what you love to do in work and also in your romantic relationships. So I hope that gives you an idea of what's coming up for you in 2025. If you'd like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website, gregoryscott.com. I use astrology, the tarot, numerology, and my intuition in my personal readings. To draw up your birth chart, need your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. If you don't have the time of birth, then please order a chart rectification with me. That's also available on the website, and that's a process where I work it out after you send me 10 significant life events. And then once I have your chart in front of me, I can really, it's a blueprint of who you are, strengths, weaknesses, and I can also look at what's coming up in future via the transits and progress chart. And if you have any questions around location or moving, I look at the astrocartography for that. So if you have any of those things that you'd like some more information on, then please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please hit subscribe for more videos and share it online with anyone who you think may be interested so that the channel grows. And if you'd like to watch the daily tarot reading on the channel, then please do become a member. I'd love to see you there. Have a wonderful 2025, and I'll speak to you soon.